If you ever meet Claire Addison today, you'd never guess that just 6 months ago she didn't know her own name. She looks like a woman who has it all together, a graceful kind of strength, the kind that only comes from having lost everything and clawed her way back. But when I first met Claire, she was sitting in a hospital bed, staring at a wall like she expected it to blink first. She didn't know her name then. She didn't know the man sitting beside her with worry creasing his forehead. That man, as it turns out, was her husband. His name was Daniel. The doctor said she was lucky. The crash could have killed her. The SUV she'd been driving had wrapped itself around a telephone pole just outside town. No one else was in the car. No other vehicles were involved. No skid marks. No signs of braking. It was like she just let go of the wheel. But Claire didn't remember any of that. Not the crash. Not the days leading up to it. Not Daniel. "I'm your husband," he'd said gently, reaching for her hand. She let him hold it, but there was no spark of recognition in her eyes. "You slipped on black ice. It was early morning. You were on your way to the farmer's market. You love the market." Claire blinked slowly, processing, trying to make room in her head for this stranger who claimed to be her past. The hospital stay was brief. Daniel brought her home after a week, home being a large, carefully decorated house on the edge of a quiet cul-de-sac. Everything in it looked like a magazine spread. Every corner screamed of perfect life. But perfection can be a very good disguise. There was something off. Not that Claire could articulate it. She didn't have memories, just impressions. Flashes. Sometimes, when she passed the mirror in the hallway, she felt like she was being watched. Like someone, herself, was just behind the glass trying to tell her something. Daniel was attentive. Loving even. He cooked, cleaned, showed her old photo albums. He reminded her of their wedding day, their vacations, the way she laughed at corny movies. But every memory he handed her felt like a borrowed coat that didn't quite fit. He told her she worked from home as a freelance interior designer. That she didn't have many friends by choice. "You always said people exhaust you," he smiled, brushing hair behind her ear. Claire tried to believe it. She tried to fall back into the life he presented. But something always pulled at the corners of her mind. Not voices, not hallucinations, just questions. Why didn't she remember loving this man? Why did the house feel like a hotel? Why did she keep dreaming of drowning even though the crash had nothing to do with water? The dream started 2 weeks after she returned home. In them she was always running. Through woods. Down corridors. Sometimes barefoot. Always afraid. And always someone was chasing her, but she never saw their face. When she told Daniel, he brushed it off. "Probably just your brain trying to piece things together," he said. "It's normal. Normal." The word began to sound suspicious. And then she found the journal. It was tucked in the bottom drawer of a white lacquered vanity in the guest room. A room Daniel said was mostly used for storing old decor samples. He told her she never liked anyone staying over. That she was private. The journal was thin. Leather-bound. Locked with one of those tiny buckles that looked like something from a childhood diary. No name on the cover. Just the faint embossing of a feather. She felt a strange chill when she touched it, like the warmth drained from her fingertips for just a second. The key was taped to the back of a framed sketch on the desk. She doesn't remember how she knew to look there. She just did. The first page was blank. So was the second. Then, finally, on the third page. "If you're reading this, it means you've forgotten." "That's good. That means I was right. But listen carefully, do not trust him." Claire's heart stopped. She read the words 3 more times, but they didn't change. The handwriting was hers. She recognized the loopy R, the way she dotted her, with a faint upward stroke. She turned the page. "He'll lie to you. He'll try to make you feel safe. But he is not who he says he is. And neither are you. Get out before you remember too much." Her hands shook. She locked the journal, slid it back into its hiding place, and stared at the vanity's dusty mirror. This time she did see someone looking back. A flicker of someone stronger. Someone who knew things. She didn't tell Daniel. Instead, she smiled a little more. She asked more questions. She watched him carefully, noticed the tightness in his jaw when she asked about her family. Where were they? He said her parents had passed. That they'd been distant. That she hadn't spoken to them in years. But what about friends? Co-workers? "You always kept to yourself," he repeated. "It's who you are." Claire began to realize something disturbing. She didn't even know if she had a favorite color. A favorite book. There were no contacts in her phone besides Daniel. No emails, no texts. Nothing. She checked the mailbox. Bills addressed to both of them. A catalog or 2. No letters. No handwritten cards. She felt like a ghost in her own life. But then she remembered the journal. That someone herself had left breadcrumbs. So maybe she wasn't crazy. Maybe this wasn't amnesia. Maybe it was a trap. 3 nights later, she opened the journal again when Daniel left for groceries. This time the next message read, "He will never let you go. So don't tell him you remember anything. And for God's sake, don't let him know you found this. There's more hidden. Find the key. You know where to look." Claire closed the book and stared out the window at the snow beginning to fall. The air felt too still, like the house was listening. That night she dreamed again. But this time she wasn't running. This time she stood in a room of mirrors. Hundreds of versions of herself stared back. One of them stepped forward, her mouth open in a silent scream. Blood dripped from her fingertips. Claire reached out and woke up to find Daniel standing over her. "I heard you cry out," he said, gently stroking her hair. "It was just a dream." He kissed her forehead, but something in his eyes flickered. A tightness, a crack in the mask. Claire nodded, said nothing, because now she was sure. This wasn't just about lost memories. This was about survival. And whoever she was before, she'd known that. Claire had never noticed how quiet the house was until that morning. It wasn't just a peaceful quiet, it was unnatural. Like a vacuum where every sound had been swallowed up. There were no clocks ticking. No creaks from the floorboards. Even the refrigerator hummed too softly, like it had been told to behave. Daniel had gone to work. At least that's what he said. "I'm meeting a client out of town today," he told her over coffee. "It might be late when I get back. Don't wait up." Claire smiled the way she'd practiced in the mirror. Soft, believable, submissive. He kissed her like a man who thought he was trusted. And then he left. The moment the door closed, Claire didn't move. Not right away. She listened. Waited. Gave it 5 full minutes. Then 10. Just in case. When she was sure she was alone, she went straight for the journal. Same page. Same chilling warning. "Find the key. You know where to look." Claire sat cross-legged on the bedroom floor, the journal spread open beside her. She thought hard. Where would she hide a key if she was trying to protect herself? Not her past self, but her. The one who had written this. The first place that came to mind was the fireplace mantel. It was clean, dusted, too pristine. But beneath the candles and decor pieces, the brick had a small groove, just deep enough to wedge a flat object. She reached up and felt around. Nothing. Next, the linen closet. Inside she found rows of neatly folded towels, stacks of toilet paper, and nothing else. She hesitated for a moment before closing the door, catching a faint whiff of lavender. But something tugged at her. Instinct. She pulled the towels out one by one. And there, behind the bottom stack, she found a framed photograph tucked against the wall. It was her. Smiling. Arms wrapped around a woman with dark hair and fierce brown eyes. They looked happy. Windblown. The ocean behind them. Claire flipped the frame around. No note, no date. She had no memory of that day. No memory of her. She brought the photo closer to the light. Something scratched faintly along the bottom of the frame. She tilted it. A tiny brass key. Claire's breath caught. She slid it into her palm, carefully placed everything back exactly as it was, and returned to the bedroom. The journal had a clasp on the back. She hadn't noticed it before, it was so subtle it blended into the leather. She inserted the key. It clicked. The back cover popped open. Inside was a folded piece of thick paper. She opened it, heart pounding. It was a list. Only 4 items were written in her own hand. "Eleanor, she knows. Trust her. Check the basement, behind the false panel. You wrote everything down. Don't trust memory. If he finds out, run." Claire stared at the first name. Eleanor. That had to be the woman in the photo. Her pulse raced. Someone out there knew her. Someone who wasn't Daniel. Someone she trusted enough to leave a breadcrumb trail to. She didn't have a last name, but she had a face. She opened Daniel's laptop. He always left it charging on the kitchen counter. No password. Either he was careless or he thought she was too broken to snoop. She Googled Claire Addison Eleanor. Too many results. So she added ocean, hoping the background in the photo would narrow things down. And there, on page 2 of the results, she found an old blog post titled, "A Sea Change, Portrait of Friendship by Eleanor Graves." She clicked the link. The article opened with a photo. The same one in the frame. The caption read, "Me and Claire Addison, Maine 2017. Best weekend of my life." Claire stared. Her name. Her face. Her connection to a life she didn't remember, but one that was real. Eleanor Graves had a website. A phone number. Claire grabbed her phone. Her fingers trembled as she dialed. It rang once, twice. Then, hello. A woman's voice. Warm, cautious. Eleanor? Claire asked. Silence. Who is this? It's Claire, she said. Claire Addison. A sharp inhale. Then another silence. That's not funny, Eleanor said tightly. Don't joke like that. I'm not joking, Claire said quickly. I don't know what happened, but I found your photo. I think something happened to me. I don't remember anything. I had a car accident, and when I woke up, my husband told me we were alone. No friends. But I found a journal. It told me to find you. More silence. Then quietly, almost a whisper. Where are you? Claire gave her the town name. Eleanor's voice shifted. I'll come to you, she said. Don't tell him. Don't let him know you called. I'll be there tomorrow morning. The line went dead. Claire stared at the phone. Tomorrow. All she had to do was make it through one more night. She spent the rest of the afternoon pacing. She didn't dare go into the basement yet, not until Eleanor arrived. Not until she had someone with her. At 7, Daniel came home. Right on cue. Carrying a bag of groceries and a too bright smile. How was your day? He asked, placing the bag on the counter. Quiet, Claire said. I read a bit. Took a nap. He nodded. Good. But his eyes scanned the room, lingering too long on the laptop. On her face. He poured wine. Made pasta. Talked about a client who was difficult. Claire nodded, laughed when she was supposed to. Pretended not to see the way he watched her. That night, he curled up behind her in bed. One arm draped over her waist. His breath was warm against her neck. You're different lately, he whispered. Claire's body froze. I guess. I'm starting to feel more like myself, she whispered back. He said nothing. Eventually, she heard his breathing deepen. But she didn't sleep. Not a single second. Because tomorrow, Eleanor was coming. And maybe then she'd get answers. Maybe then she'd find out what happened to the woman she used to be. Morning crept in like a secret. The sunlight trickled through the bedroom curtains in quiet slants, and Claire lay wide awake, eyes fixed on the ceiling, heart pounding with quiet dread. Every hour of the night had passed like a slow drip. She didn't sleep, not even for a minute. Today, Eleanor was coming. At precisely 9:03 a.m., a car rolled up the quiet cul-de-sac. Claire peeked through the front blinds. It was an older model Subaru, silver, dusty around the tires. From it stepped a woman, tall, striking, with dark, unruly hair and a leather satchel slung over her shoulder. Claire's heart clenched. Even from behind the glass, she knew this woman. She didn't remember her, but she knew her. She cracked the door open before Eleanor could knock. For a moment, they just stared at each other. And then Eleanor whispered, "Oh my God, it's really you," and stepped forward like she might hug her, but stopped. Her eyes were brimming with tears, but her mouth tightened like she was holding back a scream. Claire opened the door wider. Come in. The moment the door shut behind them, Eleanor grabbed Claire's wrist and pulled her into the hallway, her voice low and urgent. Is he here? Claire shook her head. He's at work. Are you sure? Claire nodded. He never comes home before 6. Eleanor exhaled. We have to be fast. They went into the kitchen. Claire made coffee with trembling hands while Eleanor sat at the table, watching her like someone seeing a ghost walk. Claire finally said, I don't remember you. I don't remember anything. But I found a journal. I think I wrote it before the accident. It mentioned you. Said you know. Eleanor blinked. You don't remember anything at all? Bits, Claire admitted. Feelings, dreams. But no solid memories. Eleanor's face darkened. Maybe that's a blessing. Claire placed the coffee between them. Who am I, Eleanor? Eleanor looked her straight in the eyes. You're not who he says you are. Claire froze. Eleanor continued. You and I, we met 5 years ago at a wellness retreat. You were running from him even back then. You'd left him once already, started over in Maine. You had a whole new life. You were thriving. Claire's voice barely came out. But I'm here now. With him. Eleanor's voice shook. He found you. He convinced you to go back. And you stopped answering my calls. I came here once months ago. He said you moved. That you didn't want to be found. Claire stared at her cup, mind spinning. But if I left him once, why would I come back? That's what I've been asking myself for a year. Claire felt the chill seep into her spine. What kind of man is he? Eleanor didn't answer right away. Then carefully she said, the kind who makes you doubt yourself so thoroughly, you start believing your fear is love. Claire went silent. The words pierced something deep in her gut. Eleanor leaned forward. "Did he hurt you, Claire? Before the crash?" "I don't know," Claire whispered. "But I think I was planning to leave again." The journal said not to trust him, that there's something hidden. In the basement. Eleanor's eyebrows shot up. The basement? Claire nodded. Behind a false panel. Eleanor stood up. "Then we need to go. Now." They descended the narrow stairs, flicking on the light as they went. Claire hadn't dared come down here before. It always felt like crossing a boundary. It was neat. Too neat. A row of plastic storage bins carefully labeled. Seasonal decorations. Spare linens. Paint cans. Felt stage. Claire scanned the wall, her eyes catching on a thin seam in the wood near the far corner. Barely visible. She crossed the room, pressed her fingers against the panel. Nothing happened. "Try from the side," Eleanor said softly. Claire pushed at the seam and with a faint click, the panel popped inward. She pulled it open. Behind it was a narrow cavity. Inside, a metal box. Heavy. Padlocked. Claire held it like it might explode. "There's no key," she said. Eleanor stepped forward, her eyes narrowed. "Smash it." They brought the box upstairs. Claire grabbed a hammer from under the sink and with shaking hands hit the lock once, twice, and on the third try it snapped open. Inside was a stack of documents. Photos. A flash drive. Claire's breath caught as she pulled the first paper out. It was a medical file. Claire Addison. Patient file. Diagnosis, dissociative amnesia. Notes. Subject reports multiple memory lapses. Suspected trauma response. Eleanor leaned over her shoulder. "You were seeing someone." There were therapy notes. Transcripts. Journal entries from a voice recorder. The writing was raw, unfiltered. Desperate. "I don't know who I am when he's not looking. I think I'm being followed. He says I'm imagining things. But the bruises don't lie." Claire's hands trembled as she turned the pages. Then she found the photos. Her eyes red, cheek bruised. One of her arms wrapped in gauze. Another of her car months before the crash, windshield smashed. The breath left her body. Eleanor touched her shoulder. "Claire, he was hurting you." Claire stared down at her own haunted face in the photos. Something inside her buckled, but something else, something sharper, was awakening. And then Eleanor picked up the flash drive. "There's more," she said. "You said in a voice memo you were backing everything up. Videos, emails, threats. He didn't know you were recording him." Claire stared at the flash drive. "Do you have a laptop?" Eleanor asked. Claire nodded. They plugged it in. It took a moment to load. Folders popped up. Recordings, emails, photos, insurance documents. Then a final folder, "If I disappear." Claire clicked it. A video opened. And there she was, staring into the camera. Well, determined. "If you're watching this," she said, "it means you don't remember. Or maybe you do and you're scared. But you need to listen. Daniel is not your husband. He's not even Daniel. That man, he took his identity." Claire's mouth fell open. In the video, her past self swallowed hard. "His real name is Thomas Gray. He used to be my client. I designed his house years ago. He was charming. Harmless. Or so I thought. But then, he started showing up at my door. He said he loved me. That we were meant to be." In the video, her face crumpled. "When I said no, he didn't take it well. And then one day Daniel, my actual husband, vanished. A boating accident. At least that's what they said. But I never saw a body. And then he came back. With Daniel's name. Daniel's face. Plastic surgery. Contacts. Voice training." Claire felt like the world tilted sideways. "He became him," the woman in the video said. "And I was too scared to tell anyone. He said he'd kill me if I left again." The video ended. Claire sat frozen, mouth open, heart pounding. Eleanor whispered, "Holy hell." Claire stood slowly. Her legs trembled. Everything she thought she knew, about the man she slept beside, the life she lived, was a lie. A violent, orchestrated lie. She wasn't just recovering from memory loss. She was living in a stranger's prison. She looked at Eleanor. "I need to get out," she said. "Today?" Eleanor nodded. "We'll go. Now, I'll take you to my place." Claire gathered the documents, the flash drive, the journal. She shoved them into a bag. And then she paused. "What?" Eleanor asked. "I want to see one more thing," Claire said. She walked to the hallway mirror, the tall one by the front door. She stood in front of it and looked into her reflection. This time, the woman staring back didn't seem like a stranger. She looked like someone ready to take her life back. They left just after noon. Claire sat in the passenger seat of Eleanor's Subaru, her knees drawn to her chest, her hands still trembling even though she tried to appear calm. The bag in her lap held the journal, the flash drive, the documents, her entire past life compressed into a canvas satchel. Eleanor kept her eyes on the road, driving faster than usual. Her hands gripped the wheel a little tighter than necessary. Neither of them spoke for the first 5 minutes. Claire finally broke the silence. "Do you think he knows?" Eleanor's jaw clenched. "He might suspect. But I don't think he knows you've remembered." "I haven't remembered," Claire whispered. "I've just discovered." "That's enough. It's more than enough." Claire looked out the window. Trees blurred by in streaks of green and brown. She couldn't shake the image of the video, her own voice warning her. The trembling fear. The desperation in her eyes. She wasn't just running from a bad marriage. She was running from a man who'd become someone else to possess her. A shapeshifter not in myth, but in motive. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Claire jumped. She pulled it out slowly. "Daniel, where are you?" "I came home early. House is empty. Call me." Her breath caught. Eleanor glanced over. "What is it?" "He's home. Early." Eleanor swore under her breath. "He's going to look for you. Maybe track your phone." Claire's heart stuttered. "Can he do that?" "Let's not find out." Eleanor grabbed the phone, tossed it into her bag and switched it off. "From now on we use mine. If he calls, don't answer. Let him wonder." Claire nodded. Her stomach twisted. They drove for another hour before arriving at Eleanor's small farmhouse just outside a sleepy town. It was cozy, blue siding, white trim, a porch swing. The kind of place where the world felt slower. See? Eleanor made tea while Claire sat on the sofa, legs curled beneath her, hands still wrapped around the bag. "You can stay here as long as you need," Eleanor said gently. "I've got an extra room. Locks on every door. And if he shows up, I'll call the police before he gets a word out." Claire looked up. "Do you think they'll believe me?" Eleanor paused. "No," she admitted. "Not without proof. But we have the flash drive. The recordings. It's a start." Claire sipped the tea. "What if I never remember? What if I stay broken?" "You're not broken," Eleanor said. "You're healing. And that's different." Claire smiled faintly. "You always this poetic?" "Nope. Just terrified," Eleanor replied, but she smiled too. That night, Claire lay in the guest room, soft lavender sheets, clean air, the distant chirp of crickets. She should have felt peace. Instead, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. She told herself it was trauma, nothing more. The echo of paranoia whispering in her blood. But when she got up to get a glass of water, she swore she saw a figure in the field beyond the house. Just a shadow, gone when she looked again. She told Eleanor. "Could have been a deer," Eleanor said. "Or your imagination." But the way she looked out the window twice made Claire think she wasn't sure either. The next morning, they took the flash drive to a friend of Eleanor's, a retired cybercrime investigator named Jean. Jean was in her 60s, blunt and sharp-eyed. She wore sweatpants, a Guns N' Roses hoodie, and a holster of knowledge that made Claire nervous in a good way. She plugged the flash drive into her old desktop. "Let's see what the creep's been up to," she muttered. Files flicked across the screen. She clicked one marked recording _0412. Claire's voice again. "Daniel, I don't want to do this anymore. You need to let me go." Then his voice. "Come. Too calm. You don't get to leave, Claire. Not after everything I've done to become perfect for you." A thud. A muffled gasp. Then silence. Jean clicked out of it, her face suddenly pale. "This guy's dangerous." Claire nodded. "He said he was Daniel. He took his identity. But I don't know where the real Daniel is. My real husband." Jean was quiet for a long time. Then she stood and left the room, returning with a laptop and a police database login. "I know a guy. Give me a sec." She typed fast. "Let's find Daniel Addison." Minutes passed. Then Jean cursed softly under her breath. "What?" Eleanor asked. Jean turned the screen toward them. "There is no Daniel Addison reported dead or missing. Not 5 years ago. Not ever. There's a Daniel Addison, sure, but he's in New York. Alive. Married. Corporate attorney." Claire felt like she'd been punched. "So, who was I married to?" Jean clicked open another window, pulled up DMV records. Then a list of real estate filings. Mortgage records. Eleanor leaned in. Checked the title on Claire's house. Jean nodded. Pulled it up. And then they saw it. The name on the deed wasn't Daniel Addison. It was Thomas Gray. Claire froze. He didn't just impersonate my husband, she whispered. There was never a Daniel Addison in my life. Thomas was my husband all along. Eleanor's face went white. What are you saying? Claire stood, hands shaking. I think I was the one who changed the name. I created the idea of Daniel Addison. To escape him. To dissociate. I must have told people he was someone else. Made up this whole identity even to myself. That's why no one believed me. That's why I couldn't remember. Eleanor whispered, you built a fantasy to survive. Claire nodded slowly. But the truth? The truth is worse. Jean leaned back. We can use this. The forged identity. The recordings. He's going down. Claire sat heavily on the sofa. All this time she thought he had stolen a life. But the truth was worse. She had invented one just to survive him. The brain's last defense. That night, Eleanor locked every door and window. Claire sat in the living room staring at the old photo again, the one of her and Eleanor by the sea. I don't remember that day, Claire whispered. But I want to. You will, Eleanor promised. Just then, a car drove slowly down the gravel path. Headlights off. Silent. Claire shot up. Eleanor moved to the window. A black sedan idled at the end of the drive. Then, slowly, it backed away. Gone. No one said a word. But Claire knew in her gut. He had found her. Claire hadn't slept. Not even a little. Eleanor had let her take the guest room and had even offered to stay awake in the living room with a baseball bat, just in case. But Claire had declined. She needed silence, to think, to breathe, to exist outside the constant spinning panic inside her skull. And still the silence was too loud. She sat in the guest bed, legs crossed under her, the flash drive plugged into Eleanor's old laptop. The screen glowed with folders labeled things like evidence, do not trust him, and truth. Each file was a fragment of the story she didn't remember living. Claire clicked a folder marked Journal Audio. Her voice, her real voice, unfiltered, familiar yet foreign, began to play. April 17th. He followed me again. He doesn't think I know, but I saw him outside the cafe window just watching me. Like a shadow that's learned how to smile. Claire shut the lid quickly, her hands trembling. It wasn't just the words. It was the fear woven into the voice. The quiet despair behind every syllable. Who was that version of her? So afraid. So alone. Who had she become to survive? Later that morning, Eleanor took her out to a quiet spot by a lake far from town. Just to breathe. Claire stared at the water for a long time. I don't feel real, she whispered. You're real, Eleanor said. He's the lie. Claire nodded, but her reflection on the lake's surface wavered, and the thought that wouldn't leave her was this. What if I made all of it up? What if I lied to myself to make him the monster? Her thoughts were slippery. Dangerous. That night, she dreamed she was underwater. Not drowning. Just stuck. Floating above a body that looked like hers but wasn't. A mirror self staring back at her with lifeless eyes. She woke up gasping, soaked in sweat. The next day, Jean, Eleanor's friend, called. I dug around, she said. And Claire, we need to talk. They met in a coffee shop 20 miles away, one with creaky floors and quiet corners. Jean arrived with a thick manila envelope. She slid it across the table. Medical records. Police reports. Sealed stuff. You must have paid a lot to keep it quiet. Claire opened the envelope slowly. Inside were printed files. Photos. Documents with her name on them, and a name she didn't recognize at all. Teresa Lane. Claire looked up, stunned. Who is Teresa Lane? Jean tapped the file. You are. Or, you were. What? You changed your name legally 7 years ago. Moved across state lines. Wiped your digital history clean. You didn't just leave a man behind, Claire. You left an entire identity. Claire's skin went cold. Why would I do that? I don't know, Jean said. But here's where it gets messy. She pulled out a photo. A grainy security cam still. A woman, Claire but younger, standing in a hardware store aisle. She looked directly at the camera. Behind her was a man. Tall, dark-haired. The caption read, Suspected of filing false police report. 2015. Claire whispered, I don't remember this. Eleanor leaned forward. Wait, false report? Jean nodded. According to this, you claimed a man broke into your apartment. Tried to hurt you. The police investigated. Found no evidence. The man in question? A coworker. No record of violence. No history of stalking. And then, poof, you disappear. Change your name. Claire's heart thudded in her chest. Eleanor looked confused. Are you saying Claire made it up? I don't know, Jean said carefully. I'm just showing you what's on paper. Claire sat back, her mind spinning. The journal said Thomas wasn't who he claimed to be. But now there was a whole different truth staring her in the face. What if she had a pattern of paranoia? What if the trauma she remembered wasn't just from him, but from her own mind? What if she had been running from herself? That evening, Claire sat alone in the farmhouse living room. She stared at her hands, at the creases in her skin, wondering who those hands had belonged to before the crash. Wondering if she was a victim, or something far more complicated. The flash drive was still in her lap. She opened another file. This one was a video, not like the others. It was grainy with poor lighting. Clearly filmed in secret. The camera was facing a mirror. Claire was in it, or Teresa perhaps. Her face looked thinner. Hello. She sat in front of the mirror, talking to herself. You have to remember this isn't real. He's not real. You made him. You needed him. Claire froze. He doesn't exist, not outside of your need for someone to blame. You built him. And now he's alive. Walking. Talking. But he's just your pain. Just the echo. She clicked pause, breath caught in her throat. What did that mean? She started the video again. The bruises? You did that. You needed a story. You needed someone to fight. But no one's fighting you. No one's chasing you. You just never forgave yourself. Claire snapped the lid of the laptop shut. Everything in her body screamed in protest. That couldn't be right. That version of her, the one in the video, was unstable, paranoid, fragmented. She needed Eleanor. She found her in the kitchen making tea. There's something wrong with me, Claire whispered. Something worse than I thought. Eleanor turned slowly. And in that moment, something changed in her face. The softness vanished. And Claire realized. Eleanor wasn't surprised. Not even a little. Claire took a step back. What do you know? She asked. Eleanor sighed. Her voice was low. Come, Cole. You weren't supposed to watch that video yet. Claire's heart dropped into her stomach. You knew, she whispered. You knew what I was? I knew what you might be, Eleanor said. I've known for a long time. Claire shook her head. Why didn't you tell me? Eleanor stepped forward. Because you needed a story, Claire. And I gave you one. Claire stared at her wide-eyed. What are you talking about? Eleanor's voice was razor-sharp now, almost pitying. You were unraveling long before the accident. You created Thomas. You invented the fear. You made it all make sense. And when things broke, I tried to pull you back. Claire whispered, You said you were my friend. I am your friend, Eleanor said. The only one who stayed. Even when you turned on everyone else. Even when the police stopped believing you. Even when he left. Claire's vision blurred. Who left? Eleanor was silent. And then, almost gently, she said, Your real husband, Daniel. The one who did exist. Claire's knees buckled. She sat on the floor, heart pounding, the world spinning again. Eleanor knelt beside her. You couldn't handle what happened, Claire. So you rewrote it. Over and over again. Until you believed your own fiction. Claire looked up, tears spilling. Then who is Thomas? Eleanor's face was unreadable. I don't know anymore, she said. Maybe he's real. Maybe he's a piece of you. But if he's out there, if he exists at all, then he's not just dangerous to you. She paused. He's dangerous because of you. The next morning, Claire didn't speak. Not because she didn't want to. Because she couldn't. Her voice felt trapped somewhere behind the wall that had cracked open the night before, when Eleanor revealed the truth, or what she claimed was the truth. Claire couldn't tell what was worse, that she had invented a man to fear, or that a man she feared might still be real. She sat at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug of tea she hadn't sipped. Eleanor moved quietly in the kitchen, frying eggs and humming like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just torn Claire's entire sense of reality to pieces. Claire finally spoke. You said Daniel left me. Eleanor nodded, not turning around. He tried to help. For years. But eventually he realized he couldn't save someone who didn't want saving. Did he love me? Eleanor paused mid-stir. Yes. But love doesn't fix delusion, Claire. The words hit like a slap. Claire looked out the window. The sky was overcast, silver and stretched thin like a bruise. The lake in the distance shimmered like glass, still but hiding something just beneath the surface. Just like her. A knock at the front door shattered the silence. Claire jumped. So did Eleanor. They stared at each other for a beat. Then Eleanor slowly walked to the front hall. Claire followed, heart thudding in her ears. Eleanor opened the door. A man stood on the porch. Mid-30s. Clean cut. Dressed simply. Not threatening, but something about him made Claire's stomach drop. He smiled. "Hi," he said softly. "I'm looking for Claire Addison." Claire didn't speak. Her mouth had gone dry. Eleanor stood in front of her like a wall. "She's not available." The man's smile didn't fade. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I think she might not remember me." Claire stepped forward past Eleanor. "Who are you?" she asked. His eyes softened. Daniel Addison." Claire froze. He looked exactly like she remembered. But then again, she wasn't sure what she remembered anymore. Her pulse thundered. Daniel took a cautious step closer. "I've been looking for you ever since the accident. I heard you were in the hospital, but by the time I got there, you were gone. I thought maybe you'd run again." Claire swallowed. "How did you find me?" He glanced at Eleanor. "I called her. She used to call me every few months to give me updates. Then she stopped. I got worried." Claire looked at Eleanor sharply. Eleanor didn't flinch. "I was trying to protect you." Claire turned back to Daniel. "If you're really my husband, why did I run from you?" He looked like he'd been expecting the question. "Because you thought I was someone else. Someone named Thomas. A man who hurt you. And no matter what I said, you couldn't believe I wasn't him." Claire's knees felt weak. She sat on the armrest of the couch. "Why didn't you have me committed?" "I tried," he said quietly. "They wouldn't keep you. You were too lucid on the outside. But I knew something was wrong. You weren't the same after your sister died." Claire blinked. "Sister?" Eleanor sat down slowly. "You had a younger sister, Lily. She died in a fire 2 years ago." "I don't remember that," Claire whispered. Daniel nodded. "You blocked it out. Blamed me. Said I didn't save her. But I wasn't even there, Claire. I was at work." Claire buried her face in her hands. Everything was wrong. Or right. She couldn't tell anymore. "Why did I call you Thomas?" she asked finally. Daniel hesitated. "Because Thomas was someone from before. A man you were with briefly. He wasn't violent, but he was manipulative. You left him. But after Lily died, you started mixing things up. Rewriting timelines. Combining people." Claire looked up. "So you're saying I took all my trauma and made you the villain?" Daniel nodded, his eyes glistening. Claire felt sick. "But the recordings, the journal, the flash drive. I don't know where they came from," Daniel admitted. "You were always recording things. Always journaling. But I never knew how deep it went. You wouldn't let me read any of it." Eleanor stood up. "Maybe we should take a break." But Claire shook her head. "I want to see something." She walked over to Eleanor's bag and pulled out the flash drive. Plugged it into the laptop. Opened a file labeled, Confession _1. It was video. Her face appeared on screen, but not the tearful, frightened woman she'd seen before. This version of Claire looked calm. Almost cold. "If you're watching this," she said, "then either I'm dead or you're finally starting to question what's real. Good. You should." Claire leaned closer. "You've been living in a story you wrote to protect yourself. But here's the truth, Claire. Not everyone you remember is real. And not everyone you forget is gone. Thomas was real. So was Daniel. So was Lily. But none of them are who you think they were. Including you." She smiled, a chilling little smirk that didn't reach her eyes. "You're not the victim in this story. You're the author. You're the reason the plot keeps twisting." Claire's breath caught. "And the worst part?" the video Claire continued. "Even now, even as you watch this, you're still rewriting it in your head. Still convincing yourself you're sane. But you're not. You're just good at lying. Especially to yourself." The screen went black. No ending. No explanation. Claire sat in stunned silence. Daniel and Eleanor didn't speak. Finally, Claire whispered, "Why would I record that?" Daniel stepped forward. "Because part of you wanted to remember. And part of you never wanted to face what you did." "What did I do?" Daniel didn't answer. Eleanor did. "You left Lily alone in the house." Claire turned to her horrified. "No. You told her you'd be back in 10 minutes. You were gone for an hour. The fire started in the kitchen. A burner left on. She couldn't get out." Claire clutched her chest, shaking her head. "No. That's not true. That can't be true." Daniel knelt in front of her. "I never blamed you," he said. "But you blamed yourself. And instead of processing it, you created a world where someone else was responsible. Where there was a villain you could run from." Claire sobbed into her hands. The pain was unbearable. A slow rip through the soul. She felt like a puppet whose strings had all been cut. Daniel stayed there silent, waiting. Finally she looked up and asked the question no one wanted her to ask. Is Thomas real? Daniel hesitated. Too long. Claire's heart stuttered. He's not, she whispered. Daniel didn't respond. She turned to Eleanor. Is he? And Eleanor, her best friend, her rock, her savior, said quietly, no. You created him. Claire's breath hitched. Eleanor added, but now, I think someone else might be using that name. Claire's eyes widened. What do you mean? Eleanor reached into a drawer, pulled out a letter. Handwritten, postmarked yesterday. She handed it to Claire. Claire opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a single sentence written in neat cursive. I'm coming to finish what you started. Thomas. Claire's blood ran cold. Eleanor's voice was barely above a whisper. So if he wasn't real before, someone made him real now. Claire stared at the letter on the table. The handwriting was deliberate, elegant even. The paper smelled faintly of cologne, something woodsy and dark, the kind that clung to a man's jacket after he'd been standing too close for too long. I'm coming to finish what you started. Thomas. Her hands trembled. He's not real, she whispered. Daniel didn't move. Eleanor just folded her arms across her chest like she had expected this from the beginning. Claire shook her head. If he's not real, then who sent this? Eleanor picked up the envelope, her brow furrowed. It was postmarked from Boston. No return address. Just dropped in a mailbox. Claire turned to Daniel. Do you know anyone who could have done this? Someone from my past? Someone who knew about Thomas? Daniel didn't answer right away. Finally he said, you told your therapist everything back then. If anyone knew about Thomas, it was her. Claire blinked. I had a therapist? Dr. Adrienne Fox, he said. You saw her for almost a year. Why haven't I heard her name before now? Because you made me promise not to ever bring her up again, Daniel replied. You said she betrayed you. That she tried to convince you Thomas didn't exist. That she was working with me. Claire pressed her fingers to her temples. It was like trying to follow two storylines at once, and realizing you might be the unreliable narrator of both. I want to see her, she said. Daniel hesitated. Are you sure? Claire met his eyes. No. But I need to know. Dr. Adrienne Fox's office was a converted Victorian just outside the city. Pale gray shingles, ivy curling along the sides, and a wooden plaque by the stairs that read, Private Practice, Appointments Only. Claire stood at the bottom step, frozen. I've been here before, she said. Eleanor nodded gently. A lot. Dr. Fox greeted them at the door. Mid-50s, kind eyes, silver streaks in her hair like lightning bolts. She looked at Claire for a long moment, then said softly, Hello, Claire. It's good to see you again. Claire stepped inside, her legs stiff, her throat dry. The office smelled like lavender and old books. The same as before, maybe. Or maybe that was just how her brain was stitching the memory together now. They sat in a quiet, sunlit room. Eleanor and Daniel waited outside. Dr. Fox faced Claire. You said you wanted to talk. Claire nodded. About Thomas. A flicker crossed Dr. Fox's face. Not surprise. Just acknowledgement. I always suspected you might circle back to him. Claire leaned forward. Did I make him up? Dr. Fox chose her words carefully. You created him out of many pieces. There was a man named Thomas you briefly dated. But he wasn't violent. What you turned him into, that was different. But now, Claire whispered, someone is using that name. Someone sent me a letter. Dr. Fox folded her hands. That was always the danger, Claire. You gave him form. You gave him a history. And when you started writing it all down, it became more than a memory. It became a map. A guide. Claire stared. You think someone found my journals? I think, Dr. Fox said slowly, you underestimated the power of your own words. Claire reached into her purse and pulled out one of the journal pages. The original, handwritten ones she'd found in the lining of her suitcase the night she ran. She handed it to Dr. Fox. Read. If you're reading this, then Thomas has found a way back into the story. You have to remember, you're not crazy. You're just haunted by a ghost you built. Dr. Fox read it slowly, then looked up. This isn't just a metaphor anymore, is it? No, Claire said. Someone wants to become him. And I don't know why. Dr. Fox stood and crossed to a tall cabinet. She unlocked it, pulled out a folder, and handed it to Claire. Inside were notes. Typed, handwritten, annotated. All in Dr. Fox's neat, looping script. This is everything I wrote down during your sessions. Names, fears, memories, patterns. You created Thomas to make sense of pain that didn't fit inside your body. Claire flipped through the pages, heart racing. And then she saw it. A list written in all caps. Names to remember. Thomas Reeves, Daniel Addison, Lily Addison, Eleanor Shaw, Marie Lane. Me? Claire frowned. Who's Marie Lane? Dr. Fox froze. You told me that name once. Said it was the name Thomas used for you in the dreams. When he wanted to punish you. Claire's blood ran cold. I don't remember that. I think you tried to forget it, Dr. Fox said. But if someone's read your writing, all of it, then they know your weak points, the pressure points, the names that unmake you. Claire sat back, clutching the folder to her chest. Dr. Fox leaned in. You didn't imagine what happened to you, Claire. You just gave it the wrong face, the wrong name. But the danger you sensed, that wasn't fake. Something did happen. You just fragmented it. Claire's eyes filled with tears. So is Thomas real? Dr. Fox shook her head. He wasn't. Not then. But now. She paused. Now someone wants him to be. They left the office around sunset. The air was still. The street unusually quiet. Claire walked a few steps ahead of Daniel and Eleanor, hugging the folder tightly, her mind churning with images. A name whispered in the dark, a man watching her through cafe windows, a fire consuming everything she loved. She paused. There was a car across the street. Black. Windows tinted. Someone sat inside. Watching. Daniel, she called softly. He stepped up beside her. The car didn't move. Claire could see only the outline of the driver's face. I've seen that car before, she whispered. Daniel frowned. Where? In my dreams. Before she could say anything else, the engine started. The car pulled away. But not fast. It turned the corner slowly, deliberately, like it wanted her to know it wasn't hiding. Claire's hands went numb. That night, she couldn't sleep. Eleanor stayed in the room next door. Daniel slept downstairs on the couch. Claire lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. And that's when she heard it. A tap. At the window. She sat up slowly. Another tap. Heart pounding, she crossed the room and peeled back the curtain. No one was there. But something was wedged in the window frame. A scrap of paper. She opened it with trembling fingers. Scrawled in the same cursive as the letter. You gave me life, Claire. I'm just giving you a reason to keep it. And beneath that, Thomas, P.S. Lily says hello. Claire stumbled back, mouth open, breath shallow. The room spun. Because in the hallway mirror behind her, a shadow passed by that wasn't hers. Claire didn't scream. She wanted to, but it caught somewhere in her throat, swallowed by a silence too thick and alive to break. The mirror. The shadow. The letter. She turned on every light in the bedroom, yanked open the closet, even checked under the bed like a terrified child, but there was no one there. The hallway was empty. The window closed. But the note was still real. She gripped it tightly in one hand, her knuckles white. Felt like paper. Smelled like smoke and cedar. And it had her sister's name on it. Lily says hello. Claire sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the letter, reading it again and again like it would eventually change. But it didn't. It just waited, a reminder, a taunt, or maybe something worse. A confession. She didn't sleep. She sat up until the sky turned soft gray and the birds started chirping, like they hadn't gotten the memo that the world was unraveling again. At dawn, Eleanor found her sitting there, still in the same clothes, eyes wide and haunted. Without a word, Claire handed her the note. Eleanor read it, jaw tightening. He was here, Claire whispered. Last night. Eleanor stared at the paper for a long time before folding it neatly and slipping it into her pocket. I'll change the locks, she said quietly. And install a camera. Claire shook her head. You think a deadbolt's going to stop someone who knows me better than I know myself? Eleanor looked up sharply. You don't believe he's real, do you? I don't know what I believe anymore, Claire said. But either he's real now or someone very real wants me to think he is. And that might be worse. Daniel came in a few minutes later, disheveled, holding his phone. He looked between them, sensing the tension immediately. What happened? Eleanor answered. She got another note. Last night. In the window. Daniel went still. Was anyone hurt? Claire stood. He said Lily says hello. Daniel paled. Claire watched him carefully. You believe me now? Daniel didn't speak. But something behind his eyes shifted. A quiet fear that hadn't been there before. Who would do this? He asked. Who could do this? Claire clenched her fists. Someone who wants me to remember. Later that day, Claire returned to the place she never wanted to see again. The lake house. She didn't tell Eleanor or Daniel. She left a note and drove herself, taking the winding road out of the city and into the pines, where the air grew thinner and the sky more vast. Her palms sweated against the steering wheel the closer she got, until finally it appeared. The house. 2 stories. Gray wood. Slightly leaning. Like it was tired of keeping secrets. She parked and stepped out. The wind smelled like pine and old fire. The last time she'd been here, she couldn't remember. But her feet knew the way. She unlocked the door with the spare key under the porch stone, stepped inside and immediately froze. Because something was wrong. The air was cold. Not from the weather, but from absence. Like someone had been here recently. Like their presence had just slipped away seconds before she arrived. She moved carefully through the rooms. Everything looked the same. Dusty furniture, creaky floorboards, picture frames with long faded faces. But the door to the basement was open. It had always been locked before. Claire descended slowly, each step groaning beneath her. The basement was unfinished. Cement floor. Old wood beams. Boxes covered in cobwebs. And in the center of the room sat a wooden chair, facing a wall. Claire's heart kicked against her ribs. Pinned to the wall was a single photo. She stepped closer. It was a picture of Lily. But not the usual one. Not smiling, not posing. This photo had been taken through a window. From behind her, she was sitting at a table, writing in a notebook, unaware she was being watched. Claire's blood ran cold. Below the photo, scrawled in thick ink, "She remembered before you did." Claire stumbled back. In the corner, a box. She opened it. Inside, cassette tapes. Dozens of them. All labeled in the same handwriting. Session 1L. Session 2L. Final L. She grabbed one and took it with her. Back at Eleanor's, she locked herself in her room and played the tape on an old recorder she found in the closet. Static. Then a voice. Lily's voice. Shaky. Quiet. I think he's following me. Claire doesn't believe me. But I see him outside the school. At the coffee shop. Once, I thought I saw him inside our house. Claire's breath hitched. Lily. Her voice. It was unmistakable. He told me I was just part of her story. That she made me up. But how can that be? I'm real. I know I am. Claire's vision blurred with tears. Lily continued. She doesn't remember what she did. What she saw. Or maybe she does and she's just pretending not to. I don't know anymore. I don't know who to trust. Click. Then silence. Claire sat frozen. Her little sister had been scared. Not of the world, but of her. Someone had been playing both of them. Or had Claire been playing herself? Was it possible, just possible, that she'd buried more than a name? A knock at the door startled her. She opened it. Eleanor stood there holding an envelope. Another letter, she said grimly. It was slid under the back door. Claire took it, hands trembling. This time the note was short. You're getting close. But you're still not asking the right question. You should be asking, what happened before the fire? Claire dropped the note. Because suddenly an image came flooding back. Not the flames. Not the screams. But something far worse. She remembered Lily. Her voice shaky and scared. She remembered the smell of gas. The thud of something heavy falling. And then, Claire remembered locking the door. From the outside, the house was quiet. Too quiet. Claire couldn't shake the feeling that the walls were pressing in on her, as if they were trying to keep her trapped in her own mind. The note she had found, "You should be asking, what happened before the fire?" kept repeating in her thoughts. What fire? What had she done? She couldn't remember. But now she was certain that whatever it was buried deep inside her, locked away where she couldn't reach it. Eleanor's footsteps echoed in the hall as she approached the door to Claire's room. Claire wasn't ready to talk yet. Not about the note, not about the tapes, and especially not about the picture of Lily. But she knew that Eleanor would want answers. She always did. Claire heard her knock softly before the door creaked open. Claire? Eleanor's voice was soft, cautious. Can we talk? Claire didn't turn around. She stared at the cassette recorder on the desk, the one that had played Lily's voice just hours before. Lily. That fragile, scared girl who had tried to warn Claire. Who had been caught up in the same nightmare, a nightmare that Claire couldn't remember but somehow knew she had caused. I don't want to talk, Claire said quietly, her voice rough. Not yet. Eleanor stepped closer, her shoes tapping softly on the floor. I get it. But we need to figure this out. We're running out of time. Claire clenched her jaw. Time for what? Eleanor paused. For the truth. before it's too late. Claire felt the weight of her words, a cold certainty creeping into her gut. She didn't know what the truth was, but she was beginning to fear that when it came to light, it would shatter everything. There was a long silence. Claire could hear Eleanor breathing behind her, waiting for her to speak. Finally, Claire broke the silence. "Eleanor, I think I did something terrible. Something that I can't undo. Something that might have hurt Lily." The room felt even colder as the words hung in the air. Claire's heart pounded in her chest, each beat a reminder of the growing terror that was clawing at her from the inside. Eleanor didn't move. She didn't speak. She just waited. "I can't remember, but I think I locked her out," Claire whispered. "I think I left her behind." While the fire was happening, Eleanor didn't gasp. She didn't shout. She simply whispered, "No. That's not possible." Claire turned around then, her eyes wide and pleading. "It is. I remember the door. I remember locking it. I remember hearing her scream." Eleanor knelt down beside Claire. "You're not thinking straight. You've been through too much. This is..." "No." Claire interrupted, her voice breaking. "I wasn't hallucinating. I wasn't making it up. I did it. I locked her out. I abandoned her. And now she's gone." Eleanor's face paled. "What fire are you talking about?" "The fire that killed her," Claire shouted, standing up abruptly. Her head spun, and she had to sit back down quickly, pressing her palms to her eyes to stave off the dizziness. Eleanor knelt down in front of her. "You're wrong. Lily wasn't in a fire. There was no fire. There was..." She stopped abruptly, her eyes wide. No, that's not possible." Claire felt her stomach churn. "Then why? Why would I remember it like this?" Eleanor shook her head. "There was no fire, Claire. Lily was never in a fire. She's alive. She's been alive this whole time." Claire's breath caught in her throat. "Alive? Yes, alive. Lily's been living in another city for the past year. You haven't heard from her because she's been hiding from you." Claire's mind reeled. "Hiding from me? Why?" Eleanor didn't answer immediately. She stood up and crossed to the desk where the recorder sat. She picked up the cassette tape and stared at it for a long time. Finally, she turned to Claire. "You need to listen to the rest of the tapes. They'll explain everything." Claire's hands were shaking as she grabbed the recorder. She pressed play, the static buzzing in her ears as the voice of her sister filled the room again. But this time it wasn't the same. Lily's voice was distorted. Hushed. There was something urgent in it. "Claire, if you're listening to this, then it means you've come closer to the truth. But there's something I need you to know. Something you won't remember." The voice faltered. "It wasn't just the fire. It wasn't just the fear. It was me. I did something. Something that pushed you over the edge. And I think it made you forget everything." The voice cut off abruptly, replaced by a sharp crackle of static. Claire's heart pounded in her chest. "What did she mean by that?" she whispered. Eleanor didn't answer. She just walked over to the window and stared out, her face tense. After a long pause, she said quietly, "Claire, you didn't just lose your memory. Someone made you forget." Claire looked up, confused. "Made me forget?" Eleanor turned to face her. "I don't know how, but I think you were forced into it. Someone wanted you to forget what happened. Someone wanted you to forget Lily." Claire felt a cold dread wash over her. "Who?" Eleanor's face hardened. "I think you know." Claire's breath caught in her throat. The answer was right there, staring her in the face. Thomas. The name burned like a brand in her mind. The man who had never truly existed. The man who had haunted her memories, twisted them into something darker. But was he real now? Or had he always been? The next morning, Claire stood outside the house, her mind a storm of questions and half-formed answers. She could still hear the static of Lily's voice in her head, the words she couldn't quite understand but knew she had to. Someone made me forget. But who? And why? The sun was rising over the horizon, casting a pale orange glow over the trees. Claire took a deep breath, steadying herself. It was time to find out. It was time to face whatever, or whoever, was behind the lies. She turned and headed toward the car, determined. There was no turning back now. The road stretched out before Claire like a ribbon of uncertainty, winding through dense trees and fog that clung to the earth like a secret. Her hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, knuckles white against the leather. Each mile took her further from the house, and with it, away from the fragile illusion of normalcy she had clung to for so long. But the past was catching up. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. It wasn't just the memories or the fact that she had been living a lie all this time. It was the feeling that someone, somewhere, was watching her. Not just waiting but anticipating her every move. As if they knew what she was going to do before she did. And that thought, more than anything, terrified her. She reached the old warehouse district, the place where she'd heard Thomas's name whispered in the shadows. A part of her hoped this was all just a nightmare, a terrible, twisted nightmare, but the further she drove, the more her gut told her that there was nothing imaginary about this. Everything was real. She parked in front of a decrepit brick building, the windows boarded up and the air thick with dust and decay. This was where it all started, or at least this was where she believed it had started. It was where Thomas had first made his presence known in her life, where he'd whispered in the dark about memories, about secrets. Claire swallowed hard. She stepped out of the car, her breath coming in shallow gasps, as if the air itself had turned heavy with expectation. The door creaked open as she pushed it, the hinges groaning in protest. Inside, the warehouse was dimly lit, the only light coming from a few flickering bulbs overhead. The walls were covered in peeling paint, and old crates and debris littered the floor. It looked abandoned, forgotten, but Claire knew better. This place had never been forgotten. It had been waiting for her. She moved deeper into the warehouse, each step echoing louder than the last. Her heart raced and a strange metallic taste filled her mouth. Something was wrong. It was too quiet, too still. Like the whole world was holding its breath. Then she heard it. A soft hum. Low and rhythmic like the beating of a drum. Claire stopped in her tracks. The sound was coming from the far corner of the warehouse, from behind a large stack of crates. Without thinking, she started moving toward it, her feet instinctively following the sound as though it was pulling her in. The closer she got, the louder the hum grew. It was almost unbearable, vibrating in her chest, as though the air itself was charged with energy. And then she saw it. In the far corner, hidden behind the crates, was a small door, barely noticeable, like it had been deliberately concealed. There were no handles, no windows, nothing that would make it stand out. But Claire knew this was where she had to go. Without hesitating, she pushed on the door, feeling the cold, rusted metal give way with a sickening squeal. It swung open to reveal a narrow hallway, illuminated only by a single flickering light at the end. She stepped inside. The hallway was cold, and the air smelled stale, like it hadn't been disturbed in years. Her footsteps echoed on the concrete floor as she moved forward, her pulse quickening with every step. At the end of the hallway, a door stood ajar. Beyond it, Claire could see a room. A dimly lit room, filled with shadows and shapes that made her skin crawl. She hesitated for a moment, then pushed the door open. Inside she froze. It wasn't a room. It was a control center. A sprawling array of monitors covered the walls, all displaying different scenes. A living room, a bedroom, a kitchen, each one showing different angles of her own house. Every room, every moment, every secret. There, in the middle of the room, was a chair. A metal chair strapped to the floor with wires leading into the back of it. Claire's heart skipped a beat. This was the chair. This was where it had all been done. And standing beside it, watching her with an expression that made her stomach turn, was Thomas. He looked just as she remembered, or perhaps not. His face was older now, but his eyes, those eyes, hadn't changed. They were the same dark, hollow pits that seemed to swallow everything they looked at. "Hello, Claire," Thomas said softly, his voice like velvet. "I've been waiting for you." Claire's legs trembled beneath her, and she took an instinctive step back. "What is this? What is this place?" Thomas smiled, his lips curling into something between amusement and pity. "This is where it all began, Claire. This is where I made you forget." Claire's blood ran cold. "Made me forget? What are you talking about?" "I'm not the one who made you forget," Thomas said, his voice laced with something darker now. "That was her." Claire blinked, confusion clouding her mind. "Her? You've been running from the truth for so long, Claire," Thomas continued, his tone now tinged with regret. "But the truth has always been right in front of you. Your memories, they were never yours to begin with." Claire's mind reeled. "What are you saying? Who are you?" Thomas took a step closer, his eyes never leaving hers. "I was just a puppet, Claire. But so were you. The truth is, your entire life, your memories, your choices, they were all manufactured." Claire shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "No, no, you're lying. This isn't real." Thomas's smile widened, and for the first time, it seemed almost kind. "You're beginning to see it, aren't you? The pieces are starting to fall into place." Claire took a shaky breath, her voice barely a whisper. "You're not real. None of this is real." Thomas's gaze softened, and he reached out a hand, placing it gently on her shoulder. "That's where you're wrong, Claire. I'm as real as you. But the question is, who made me? The room seemed to spin. Claire felt the ground beneath her feet shift, and for a moment she wasn't sure if she was standing or falling. I'm just a piece of the puzzle, Claire, Thomas said, his voice distant now. A reflection of someone else's design. Someone you're trying to remember. Claire's breath came in quick, shallow gasps. She felt dizzy, overwhelmed, as if the room itself were closing in around her. And then, just as the world seemed to shatter, Thomas whispered the words that broke her. Do you remember her now, Claire? Do you remember who you really are? The door slammed shut behind her and Claire's vision went black. Claire awoke with a jolt, her body trembling and her heart hammering in her chest. The sharp, metallic taste of fear lingered in the back of her throat, and she could feel the cold sweat clinging to her skin. She wasn't sure where she was. The room around her was unfamiliar, stark, and clinical, far from the warmth and comfort of her home. It was a sterile white space with no windows, only a single fluorescent light buzzing overhead, casting an eerie glow across the floor. She sat up, her head spinning as she tried to make sense of what had happened. Thomas, the monitors, the chair, the whispers, and then the words he had said. Do you remember her now, Claire? Who was she? And what had Thomas meant by that? Claire tried to stand but found herself too weak, too disoriented. She stumbled to the edge of the bed, gripping the side for support. Her body felt like it had been drained of all energy, as though someone had taken everything from her in the blink of an eye. A soft click echoed through the room and the door creaked open. Claire's breath hitched and she instinctively shrank back, fear coursing through her veins. But when she looked up, the figure standing in the doorway wasn't Thomas. It was Eleanor. Claire, Eleanor said, her voice soft but urgent. You're awake. Thank God. Claire's mind was reeling. Eleanor? What's happening? Where am I? Eleanor crossed the room quickly, kneeling beside the bed. She placed a hand on Claire's shoulder, her touch warm and comforting. You're safe. You're in a recovery facility. After what happened, after you collapsed, we had to get you help. Collapsed. Claire's voice was shaky. What happened? Where is Thomas? Where is everyone? Eleanor hesitated for a moment, her eyes flickering with something Claire couldn't quite place. Claire, listen to me. Thomas isn't real. None of this is real. Claire's chest tightened. What do you mean? He was there. He made me forget. Eleanor's eyes softened with sorrow. He made you forget? No, Claire. No one made you forget. You've been living a lie. You've been manipulated. Claire's mind felt like it was unraveling. Manipulated? By who? Eleanor took a deep breath. By her. The name echoed in Claire's mind. Her. The words, Thomas's words, came rushing back. Do you remember her now, Claire? Who? Claire demanded, her voice desperate. Who is she? Eleanor's gaze flickered to the door as if making sure no one else was listening. Claire, I don't know how to explain this, but you have to believe me. Everything you've been through, everything you think you remember, it's all been orchestrated. You've been living in a simulation of sorts. A controlled environment designed to make you forget who you really are. Claire felt her knees give out and she collapsed back onto the bed, her mind reeling with the impossible reality of what Eleanor was saying. You've been in an experiment, Claire. A psychological one. One that's been running for years. And you've been the subject. Claire closed her eyes, trying to block out the overwhelming flood of thoughts and questions. I don't understand. Why would someone do this? Eleanor hesitated, her eyes filled with guilt. Because of what you know, Claire. Because of who you were. Claire felt her stomach tighten with dread. Who I was? Yes, Eleanor whispered. You were a part of something bigger. Something that's been kept hidden for years. You were a key player in something they didn't want getting out. So they erased you. They erased your memory. They erased her. Claire's pulse quickened. Erased her? Who? Eleanor's voice dropped to a whisper as if afraid the walls themselves might hear. You were the architect. You created this entire thing. This whole world. You were the one who set everything into motion. And now they're trying to make sure you never remember. Claire's heart hammered in her chest. What are you saying? I did this. Eleanor nodded slowly. Yes, you were part of a project. A project that sought to create the perfect reality. A controlled environment where people could live out their lives without interference. But something went wrong. Something you did caused it to spiral out of control. I don't remember any of it, Claire said, her voice trembling. I don't even know who I am anymore. Eleanor's face was filled with sorrow. You were a part of a psychological experiment, Claire. You were the one who created the world you're living in, the memories you have. You built everything, from the ground up. But when you realized what you had done, you tried to stop it. And so, they erased you. Claire's mind was spinning. She couldn't make sense of it. How could she have created this world? How could she have been the one who made everything up, erased everything? You created this world, Claire, Eleanor said softly. But they don't want you to remember. They don't want you to realize the power you have. Claire's thoughts began to swirl. She could feel the weight of Eleanor's words pressing down on her, suffocating her. Could it be true? Could everything she had known, everything she had believed in, have been nothing but a fabrication? What happened to her? Claire whispered. The other me. The one I keep hearing about. Eleanor's expression darkened, her eyes filled with a mix of sadness and fear. She was you. Your original self. The one who tried to stop it. And that's why they erased her too. Claire's breath caught in her throat. So, I'm the original me? Eleanor nodded. Yes. And you're the one who has the power to end this. To destroy everything. The words sank in heavy and suffocating. End it? Claire whispered, her voice barely audible. How? How do I stop this? Eleanor looked down, her voice faltering. I don't know, Claire. But I do know one thing. What? Eleanor's gaze met hers, and for the first time, Claire saw the truth in her eyes. You have to remember. The room was silent for a long time. Claire's mind raced, trying to piece together the fragments of her memories, her reality. The walls seemed to close in, the air thick with the weight of secrets she could barely comprehend. And somewhere in the depths of her mind, a voice whispered, "It's not too late. You can stop it. You can remember." But Claire wasn't sure if she was ready to face what lay ahead. Because if Eleanor was right, everything she thought she knew was a lie. Claire sat in the sterile room, her fingers gripping the edge of the bed as though it was the only thing tethering her to reality. Eleanor's words echoed in her mind like a haunting refrain. You were the architect. You created everything. And now you have the power to destroy it. Destroy it. Could she? She didn't know what was worse, the truth or the fact that she didn't know how to escape it. Everything she had believed, every fragment of her past, every memory that had shaped her, it was all a lie. A carefully constructed world, designed and manipulated by forces she couldn't even begin to understand. The truth was more monstrous than any nightmare. Eleanor had given her a choice, a glimmer of hope amidst the chaos. You have to remember. But what if remembering meant losing herself entirely? What if it meant seeing her past, her life, in a light so twisted and dark that it would destroy everything she had ever known? Claire's chest tightened and she squeezed her eyes shut, trying to block out the thoughts swirling in her head. She could still feel it, the pressure in her mind, the invisible threads that connected everything. The sensation of being trapped in something beyond her control. Eleanor's voice broke through her thoughts. Claire, you have to make a choice. You can either go back to the life you were living, continue as you were, and let them keep manipulating you. Or, her voice faltered for a moment before she continued. Or you can choose to remember. Choose to end this. End it? Claire repeated, her voice barely a whisper. How? How do I end it? Eleanor took a deep breath. The process is painful. Could break you. But if you can access the core of your memory, if you can confront the truth of who you really are, you'll have the power to destroy the illusion. To collapse this whole reality. Claire's heart raced. Collapse the whole reality? Was that even possible? What happens if I fail? She asked, her voice trembling. If I can't do it? Eleanor's face grew somber. If you fail, Claire, you'll be lost. You'll remain trapped in this world. A puppet just like you were before. The words stung, cutting through her like a sharp blade. Trap. Puppet. Were those her only two options? Claire closed her eyes again, trying to focus on her breath, trying to steady her shaking hands. The weight of the decision pressed on her chest, suffocating her. Can I trust you? She asked quietly. How do I know this is real? How do I know I'm not just imagining everything? Eleanor's expression softened. Because Claire, you are the one who created it. You're the one who built this world. You wouldn't have made it this far if you didn't have the strength to face the truth. You're stronger than you think. Claire didn't know if she believed Eleanor. She didn't know if she could trust anyone anymore. But she did know one thing. She couldn't keep running from the truth. Not anymore. She had to remember. For better or for worse, she had to find out who she really was. Slowly, she stood up from the bed, her legs unsteady but determined. How do I start? Eleanor reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, silver key. This is the key to the place where it all began. It's where your memories are locked away, hidden beneath layers of lies. If you want to remember, if you want to destroy the world you've created, you need to go there. Claire took the key from Eleanor's hand, feeling its cold weight against her palm. The very thought of what she was about to do filled her with dread, but there was no turning back now. "Where is it?" Claire asked, her voice steady, despite the fear churning inside her. Eleanor's eyes darkened. "It's not far. But once you step through the door you can't go back. Not without facing everything." Claire's stomach dropped. "What do you mean? What will I find?" Eleanor's gaze flickered toward the door, as though she feared what might be waiting on the other side. "You'll find the truth. And it may be more than you can handle." Without another word, Eleanor led Claire down the narrow hallway, the harsh fluorescent lights flickering above them. The air felt heavier here, like the walls themselves were closing in, pressing in on Claire from all sides. They reached a door at the end of the hall, a small, unassuming wooden door. The keyhole was old and rusted, but it was the only door that mattered. Eleanor turned to Claire one last time. "Remember, Claire. Whatever you find behind this door, don't be afraid. You're not alone." Claire nodded, her hand shaking as she placed the key into the lock. The door creaked open, revealing a darkened room beyond. Claire stepped forward, feeling her pulse race in her throat. The room was cold, eerily silent, and filled with rows of computers and monitors. There were no windows, no exit. Just a vast space filled with cables and wires. In the center of the room stood a large, glass tank, like something out of a science fiction movie. Inside, the faintest outline of a figure could be seen, suspended in liquid. The tank glowed faintly, casting an eerie light on the walls. Claire's breath caught in her throat. She had seen this place before, she had created this place. This was the core of the world she had built, the heart of everything she had forgotten. She stepped closer, the faint glow illuminating the face of the figure inside. It was her. Her heart pounded as she stared at the reflection of herself, suspended in the tank. It was like looking into a mirror but distorted, like a version of herself trapped in some nightmare. Eleanor's voice echoed from behind her. "This is where it all began, Claire. This is where you made the choice to create the world you've been living in." Claire's mind raced. She created this? She was the architect? As she stared at the figure in the tank, a surge of memories flooded her mind. Pieces of her life, of her past, falling into place. The experiment, the simulation, the manipulation. All of it was real. And it was all her doing. The woman in the tank wasn't just a reflection. She was her. The real Claire. The one who had made this world, the one who had tried to stop it. The moment Claire realized the truth, she felt something snap inside her. "I can destroy it," she whispered. "I can end it all." Eleanor nodded from behind her, a tear in her eye. "Yes, but it won't be easy. You'll have to choose. Are you willing to lose everything to destroy the illusion?" Claire turned to her, her voice steady but filled with an overwhelming sense of finality. "Yes, I'm ready." She reached forward and placed her hand against the glass. The room around her began to shake. The walls trembled. The reality she had built, the one she had spent so long trapped inside, began to crumble. And in that moment, Claire realized that she had made her choice. She wasn't just remembering who she was. She was taking control. The world was ending. But Claire was finally free. The room shook violently as the walls cracked, splintering apart like glass. Claire stood frozen, her hand still pressed against the glass tank. The faint outline of the woman inside, the woman who had once been her, began to blur, like a reflection in water rippling under the surface. She could feel the world around her buckling, the carefully constructed reality she had lived in for so long breaking down piece by piece. The hum of the machines, the soft whirring of the monitors, it all began to falter, sputtering like a dying engine. "This is it," Claire thought. "I'm doing it. I'm ending it." But as the tank trembled, the figure inside seemed to shift, as if the glass was distorting her image. Claire's breath caught in her throat as the woman inside moved. No, not moved. Shifted. It was as though the woman wasn't just an image at all. She was alive. She was real. Claire staggered backward, her pulse quickening. The ground beneath her feet felt unsteady as the floor shook, the air thick with the sound of cracking walls. "This isn't right," she thought desperately. "This isn't how it's supposed to end." Eleanor's voice echoed in the chaos, cutting through the noise. "Claire, you have to make the choice. You have to let go." Claire spun around, her eyes wild with confusion. "Let go of what? What's happening?" Eleanor was standing at the doorway, her face pale and drawn. "You're not just ending the world, Claire. You're releasing it. You're freeing yourself from the system. But if you don't let go, it will consume you." Claire's head swam, her thoughts swirling in a haze. She was free. She had to be. She had broken the illusion. She had made the choice to destroy it. But now, it felt as though something more was at play, something darker and more sinister than anything she had imagined. The woman in the tank's features were becoming clearer now, her eyes wide, her mouth opening as if to speak, but no words came out. She was trying to reach Claire. Or was she trying to warn her? Claire's heart raced as she stepped closer to the tank, her fingers trembling. What is this? Who is she? Eleanor's eyes widened with horror. Claire, listen to me. You're seeing it wrong. She's not you. Claire's gaze snapped to Eleanor, confusion swirling in her chest. Not me? But she looks just like me. Eleanor's voice broke. She is you. But she isn't. She's the version of you that was never meant to be. She's the creation, the fake. Claire recoiled, the words crashing into her mind like a wave. The fake? You're the real Claire, Eleanor continued, her voice trembling. The one who tried to stop it all. The one who didn't want this world. You're the architect. She was an experiment. A failed version of you. The glass of the tank began to crack and Claire's heart sank. The woman inside, it wasn't just a reflection. It was an imperfect version of herself, a failed copy of the original. But why had it taken so long for Claire to realize this? I created her, Claire thought, her breath hitching. I created this world. I made the mistake. The world was collapsing around her, but Claire felt like she was suffocating. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't think. Eleanor's voice broke through again, desperate. Claire, you're holding on to the illusion. If you don't let go now, if you don't face the truth, everything will be lost. Not just for you, but for everyone. Everything she had known, her memories, her life, her family, everything was built on a lie. The illusion was crumbling, but Claire didn't know what would happen next. Would she disappear with the world she had built? Would she return to the life she had forgotten? The figure in the tank screamed, but no sound emerged. The glass shattered in a burst of light and the woman, her, collapsed onto the ground. Claire gasped as the figure in front of her stood, swaying unsteadily. She was real. She was alive. For a moment, Claire's mind couldn't process it. She staggered backward, but her feet refused to move. The world was a blur of colors, shapes, and sounds. She was falling. No, the world was falling. Everything around her was unraveling, twisting into chaos. Then the woman, her clone, the failed experiment, turned her head toward Claire and their eyes met. And in that instant, Claire understood. This wasn't the end. It wasn't even the beginning. This was the choice. The choice she had made long ago but had forgotten. The choice to create the world, the illusion. The choice to build her own reality. To escape. But it wasn't real. None of it had ever been real. The clone smiled and Claire felt a chill ripple down her spine. The smile wasn't warm. It wasn't comforting. It was empty. I was never meant to exist, the clone whispered, her voice eerily familiar. But you couldn't live with the truth, could you? Claire's breath hitched. I couldn't live with the truth? What did that mean? The clone stepped forward, her movements jerky, unnatural. You made me. You made all of us. And now you've come to destroy it. To destroy everything you created. But what happens when you destroy the lie, Claire? I don't understand, Claire whispered. What are you saying? The clone's smile widened, but it didn't reach her eyes. I'm the consequence. I'm the part of you you didn't want to face. The part of you that's always been there. Always hidden. The part of me I didn't want to face, Claire repeated in her mind, her heart racing. Eleanor's voice trembled. You created her, Claire. She's the part of you that tried to escape. The part that wanted to destroy the reality. But it wasn't the answer. Claire's eyes snapped back to the clone. You're not real. The clone's expression softened, almost pitying. I'm as real as you are, Claire. I was never meant to exist, but here I am. The room around them began to collapse completely. The walls shattered like glass, falling into darkness. The lights flickered and died, and the machines fell silent. And in the dark, the last thing Claire saw was the figure of the clone, smiling, no, grinning as the world disappeared. The room was gone. The glass tank. The machines. The monitors flickering in and out of life. Everything had disappeared, leaving Claire standing alone in a void of darkness. No sound. No light. No form. Just emptiness. Her heart pounded in her chest, each beat feeling like the rhythm of the universe collapsing in on itself. What have I done? She had destroyed the illusion, broken the world she had built, but it had come at a price. The clone, the version of herself she had tried to forget, the one she had built to escape from reality, was gone, lost in the collapse. But Claire was left behind. But was she really alone? Was this the end? Suddenly, a figure emerged from the blackness, the faintest outline at first. Claire blinked, her eyes adjusting to the dim light that seemed to materialize out of nowhere. And there, standing before her, was a woman. A woman she knew, no, a woman she was. Her own reflection, but not in the way she remembered. The figure before her was older, worn. Her hair was streaked with silver, her face etched with lines that spoke of time lost, of a life lived in fragments. It was her, the real her, the woman who had been lost. The woman who had never been allowed to exist. Claire, the woman said, her voice both familiar and foreign at the same time. You've come far. Claire's throat tightened. Who are you? The woman's lips twitched into a sad smile. I'm the truth. The one you buried. The one you tried to forget. Claire staggered backward, her head spinning. The world around her was a blur of distorted images, shapes that didn't make sense. She wanted to scream, but no sound emerged. She wanted to run, but her legs wouldn't move. I don't understand, Claire whispered. What is this place? This place? The woman echoed, her eyes hollow. This is the space between. The place where all the pieces of you exist, trapped in the web you've woven. The space where reality and illusion collide. Claire's mind raced. But I destroyed it. I broke the illusion. I ended it. The woman stepped closer, her eyes darkening. You think you've ended it, but the truth can't be destroyed. It can only be hidden. You can't escape who you really are, no matter how far you run. The words stung like ice. What do you mean? I made the choice. I destroyed the lie. The lie is a part of you, Claire, the woman replied softly. You can't destroy yourself. You can't erase your own truth. Claire felt a chill grip her spine. No, I'm not. This is not real. This can't be happening. The woman's eyes flickered with sadness. It's happening, Claire. You're finally facing the truth you've been running from your whole life. You created all of this. You built this world to escape the pain, the guilt, the failure. You wanted to forget. You wanted to bury the truth. But the truth is always there, waiting for you to remember. Claire shook her head, her hands trembling at her sides. No, this isn't real. This can't be me. I'm not the person you're talking about. The woman's voice became sharper, more urgent. You are. You were the person who couldn't face what she had done. Who couldn't face the consequences of her choices. You buried your past to live in a lie. But now the lie is gone. You're here and the truth is waiting for you. Claire's vision blurred and she stumbled forward, her knees giving way. She crumpled to the floor, her breath coming in ragged gasps. This wasn't real, but it felt real. It felt like the world itself was pressing down on her, suffocating her. Look at me, Claire, the woman said, her voice low but steady. You built this world. You created the illusion. You wanted to forget. But now you're forced to face the consequences of that choice. The words were like a punch to her gut, each one sinking deeper, unraveling something inside of her. Claire felt as though her entire sense of self was being torn apart. I wanted to forget. I didn't know, Claire gasped, her voice cracking. I didn't know it was all a lie. I didn't know I was running from myself. The woman knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. You've always known, Claire. Deep down you've always known. But you couldn't face it. You couldn't bear the weight of it. So you built this world, this perfect lie to shield you from the truth. Claire's eyes filled with tears. What do I do now? What am I supposed to do now? The woman's expression softened. You're not alone. Not anymore. But you can't run anymore. You have to face it. You have to embrace the truth of who you are, who you were, and who you can still become. Only then can you truly move forward. Claire closed her eyes, her mind swirling. The weight of the past, her actions, her decisions, the choices that had led her to this moment, pressed down on her, threatening to break her. But there was something else there too. A spark of hope, however small. She could move forward. She could embrace the truth. She could rebuild. I can't change the past, Claire whispered, her voice filled with quiet resolve. But I can change who I am now. The woman before her nodded, a flicker of approval in her eyes. Exactly. You are not defined by what you've done, but by what you choose to do next. For the first time in what felt like forever, Claire felt a sense of peace. It wasn't a resolution to everything. It wasn't an answer to every question. But it was a beginning. A beginning to rebuild, to face the truth, and to move on. The darkness around them began to shift, light beginning to seep into the void. The space between realities was slowly fading. Claire stood, her legs shaky, but her resolve stronger than ever. I'm ready, she said, her voice firm. I'm ready to face the truth. And I'm ready to move forward. The woman before her smiled, a smile that held both sorrow and strength. Then go, Claire. The truth is yours now. You just have to choose to live it. And with that, the void faded entirely. The light from the void had faded, and Claire found herself standing in the midst of what appeared to be an unfamiliar place. There were no walls, no ceilings, just endless open space. The air was thick with a quiet hum, as though the very fabric of existence was still in the process of forming. She took a step forward, and the ground beneath her feet seemed to ripple, as if the world was still being woven into place around her. The space was strange, alien, yet somehow familiar. Like a dream that had just begun, its edges soft and fluid, waiting for definition. But what awaited her here? What was she meant to do now? The woman, the version of Claire that had emerged from the shadows of her past, was gone. The truth had been revealed. She had faced it, embraced it, but the path ahead still felt uncertain. She had taken the first steps to rebuild her life, but now it was as if the universe itself was watching her, waiting for the next move. Claire closed her eyes and inhaled deeply, trying to center herself. She had come so far, but the journey was far from over. There was still something she hadn't yet understood, something that had eluded her all along. She could feel it, a presence just beyond her awareness, like a shadow lurking at the edges of her consciousness. Claire, a voice called softly from the distance. She froze. The voice was familiar and yet foreign. It was the voice of someone she knew, but she couldn't place who. Claire, it's time. Turning, Claire saw a figure in the distance. A figure she had not expected to see. It was her husband, Matthew. The man who had been by her side through everything. The one who had helped her through her memory loss, her confusion, and the darkest days of her life. But there was something different about him now. The way he stood, the way he looked at her, it wasn't the Matthew she remembered. There was an emptiness in his eyes, a distance that Claire hadn't seen before. "No," she whispered, stepping back. "No, it can't be you. You can't be here." Matthew's expression softened. "Claire, it's me. I've been waiting for you. But you're not real," she said, shaking her head. "You can't be. I destroyed the illusion. You were a part of it. You were a lie." The corners of his mouth twitched, and his gaze remained fixed on her. "I'm real. But so are you. This place, this moment, it's all real. This is the choice, Claire." "The choice?" she repeated, confusion swirling in her chest. "What do you mean, the choice?" Matthew stepped closer, his movements slow and deliberate. "You've been living in a lie, Claire. You've been running from the truth. But now you're at the crossroads. You can choose to move on. You can rebuild your life, embrace the truth of who you are, or you can stay here in this place. The choice is yours." Claire's heart raced. The choice. What was he talking about? "Why are you here?" she demanded. "Why are you real now? I thought I destroyed everything. I thought I erased it all." Matthew's gaze darkened slightly, and his voice dropped to a whisper. "You can't erase the past, Claire. You can't erase me. I'm a part of you. I always have been." Claire felt a chill race up her spine. "What do you mean?" "I've been running from you, from everything I thought was real. From the lies, the memories. I don't know what's real anymore." Matthew stepped forward, his presence overwhelming. "What's real is the choice you make. You can leave all of this behind and rebuild your life, or you can stay in this world of broken fragments, where everything is just a mirror of what could have been. You can choose to let go, or you can stay trapped." Claire's mind reeled. She had already faced the truth. She had embraced the reality that she had created this world, this illusion, and that it was time to let go. But was it really that simple? "Why now?" Claire whispered, her voice cracking. "Why did you wait until everything was falling apart to tell me this? To show me this place?" Matthew's eyes softened. "Because you needed to see it, Claire. You needed to understand that the truth isn't just about what's been broken. It's about what's still left to be rebuilt. You're not a prisoner of your past. You're free." For a moment, Claire didn't know how to respond. Her mind was overwhelmed with memories, the past she had tried so desperately to forget. The life she had lived with Matthew, the life they had built, and the life she had destroyed. But in the depths of her confusion, something began to clear. She was free. Her eyes locked with Matthew's, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, she saw him for what he truly was. A part of her journey, a chapter in her story, but not the whole story. "You're not the answer, Matthew," Claire said, her voice steadier now. "You were never the answer. I was the one who had to face the truth, and I'm ready to choose. I'm ready to move on." A look of something akin to sorrow passed over Matthew's face, but it was fleeting. You always had the power to choose, Claire. I was just here to show you the way. As Claire stepped away from him, the world around her began to shift again. The void that had once been empty now filled with soft light. The edges of reality became sharper, more defined, and for the first time, Claire felt like she was truly standing in the world she had created. Not a lie, not an illusion, but her own reality. Go, Claire, Matthew said quietly, his voice fading. It's time. And just like that, he was gone. Claire stood alone in the newly formed reality. The chaos had subsided. The choices she had made, both the good and the bad, had brought her here to this moment of reckoning. But she wasn't lost anymore. She was finally free to move forward, free to rebuild her life, piece by piece, with the truth as her foundation. She wasn't defined by the past, by the memories or the mistakes. She was defined by the choices she made now. And for the first time in a long time, Claire felt a peace she hadn't thought possible. The future was hers to create. And with that, the final remnants of the illusion faded away. The world around Claire was quiet now, still. No hum, no strange pull, no distortion. Just a peaceful silence, the kind that filled the air when everything was as it should be. She stood alone in the room she had created, the one she had rebuilt from the ruins of the life she once knew. The path ahead was hers to walk, and she was ready to step into the future. But something tugged at her, an unease she couldn't quite shake. Something still felt off. Had she really found the truth? Had she truly escaped the lies? As Claire wandered through the space, feeling the weight of her decisions settle into place, she couldn't help but feel like there was something she hadn't yet understood. The fragments of memories she had discarded, the illusions she had torn apart, could it all have been for nothing? Had she missed a piece? Or had someone, been pulling the strings all along? Suddenly, the stillness was broken by a sound, a soft clicking of footsteps. Claire turned, her heart skipping a beat. There, in the doorway, stood herself. But not the Claire she had just become. Not the woman who had embraced the truth and the future. This Claire was different. She was younger, a reflection of the Claire who had lived in the illusion, who had run from the truth. The woman who had built the lie. "Hello, Claire," the younger version of herself said, her voice almost mocking. "It's been a long time." Claire froze, her breath catching in her throat. No, this can't be real. This isn't happening." The younger Claire smirked, her eyes glinting with a knowingness that sent a chill down Claire's spine. "Oh, it's happening. You can't escape me. I'm always here in the shadows, waiting for you to remember." Claire's heart raced, her mind reeling. "What do you want? Why are you here?" The younger Claire stepped closer, her presence suffocating, like a mirror reflecting the worst parts of Claire's soul. "I'm here because you've made a mistake. You've torn apart everything I created. You've destroyed the world that I built to protect you. The life you had was a lie, yes, but it was a lie you needed." Claire shook her head, backing away. "No, it was a prison. I had to let go of the lies. I had to face the truth." The younger Claire's smile widened. "But you didn't. You've only replaced one illusion with another. You think you've found peace, but you're wrong. You're still running. And that's why I'm here. To remind you." The air seemed to crackle with tension as Claire's mind raced. What was she saying? Was it true? "No," Claire whispered, clutching her head in her hands. "I'm not running anymore. I'm free." The younger Claire tilted her head, her expression a mixture of pity and amusement. "Free? You think you're free, but you've only replaced one cage with another. You've trapped yourself in this new version of reality. You think you can escape the past, but the past will always follow you. It's in you. It's who you are." Claire's chest tightened. She tried to steady her breathing, to calm the storm that raged inside her. "No, I'm not you. I am not the person I used to be." "Are you sure?" the younger Claire asked, her voice now cold, almost mocking. "Are you sure the real you is gone? Or is she still here, buried deep inside? Still afraid of the truth? Still afraid of what she did?" The younger Claire took another step forward, and this time Claire didn't back away. She stood her ground, even as every part of her screamed to run, to escape the truth that was staring her in the face. The younger Claire's voice softened, almost as if she were speaking to a child. "You think you've chosen to rebuild, but you're still living in the shadow of the woman you were. You haven't really let go of me, of what I created. You're still trapped in the past, no matter how much you pretend you're not." Claire's hands shook as the weight of the words pressed down on her. Could it be true? Could she still be trapped? Suddenly, the world around her shifted, blurring at the edges. The walls began to dissolve, and the room she had built crumbled. The calm, peaceful space she had constructed, the illusion of safety, began to fade. And with it, the younger Claire, the version of herself who had clung to the lie, started to disappear. But before she vanished entirely, she gave Claire one final, piercing look. "You'll never escape me, Claire. You'll always be a part of me. And I will always be a part of you." The last words echoed in the air as the vision of the younger Claire faded into nothingness, leaving Claire standing alone once more. But now there was a new awareness in her. A deeper understanding of what she had done, and what she had yet to do. She wasn't free. She hadn't escaped the lie, she had merely moved it to a different corner of her mind. The real test was yet to come. Not just in rebuilding her life, but in fully confronting the parts of herself she had tried so hard to forget. The illusion was gone, but the truth was still here. And Claire had to face it fully, without running, without hiding. The future was hers to create, but only if she could truly accept all of herself. The broken, the whole, the past, the present, and the future. And as she stood in the ruins of the life she had built, Claire finally understood the most important lesson of all. The truth isn't something you find. It's something you choose. With that realization, Claire stepped forward, leaving the fragments of the past behind. The world stretched out before her, uncertain but real. She could rebuild. She could begin again. But only now, with a full understanding of the truth she had spent so long running from. And for the first time, Claire felt free.